had an opportunity to meet with this group. We also had an opportunity to meet with the NSTMA to talk about a potential sewer line extension. This is relatively preliminary at this point in time, but as we went ahead and began our diligence, kind of the history and what has gone on here, we understand that earlier this year there was a MOU that was executed with, I'm sorry, an MOU that had been floated with the NSTMA. So really, I think the intention of pulling this group together today is to begin to understand if Somerset is going to be supportive of a potential sewer line extension. Before we go a whole lot further with design and engineering, I apologize for way of introduction. My name is Matt Virgin with SunCap Property Group. This is Scott Miller with SunCap Property Group. I've got Keith Gindelsberger with HF Lens. He's our lead civil engineer, along with Josh Shearman from HF Lens. And this is Kenneth. He is actually our intern right now. So he got a seat at the big table awful early in his 8-day tenure as an intern with SunCap. So really the purpose of this meeting was to solicit any kind of feedback that the township supervisors or planning commission had as it related to the potential sanitary sewer line extension. Because after a series of meetings with NSTMA and some additional diligence that Keith had done with CHJA, which is actually the treatment group for the sanitary sewer, NSTMA actually doesn't have any treatment plants. They just have pipes, right? And everything ultimately goes to Chartiers. Or I'm sorry, Canonsburg, Houston. So that's the purpose of the meeting. If there is support for the sewer line extension, we can begin to dig into things from more of a design and engineering standpoint, as well as meet with the other stakeholders and see if we can bring these groups together. If there's not, then we can decide what an alternative path might look like. So with that said, Keith and Josh, do you want to just give a very brief overview of kind of where sanitary currently ends and where we have to bring it for this development?
Matt, excuse me. Yeah, my name's Bill Pollack. I'm chairman of the Planning Commission, and we certainly welcome you here this afternoon. This morning, I'd like to also point out that we are recording the meeting for the Township Transparency Group, and it would be very helpful. At this point, I don't think anyone really understands the plans for the facility. As I understand, it's on the 75-acre parcel on Lively Road, which is now owned by the Bear Family Partnership. Okay, and I don't think anyone, I don't have any information other than comments that have been secondhand. If you could explain what you're planning on the parcel, then I think that would be a useful way for everyone to start, so we can understand exactly what the plans are.
Yeah, no problem. And I apologize, maybe I was speeding a little bit there.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, and no problem being recorded. So the SunCap property is primarily a developer of industrial and warehouse buildings. We do develop nationally. We've developed a number of projects here locally, one in Washington County. Over in Fallowfield, we built a building for Komatsu, which was really the operation that was formerly Joy Mining and their facility over in Houston, PA. It was just a relocation and expansion for them. So we had a good experience here in Washington County. That was about 4 years ago, and we're happy to be back. We identified this site as kind of a prime warehousing location, really at the corner. It's on Lively Road. It's really at the interchange of 519 and 70. And when we take a look at these properties, we do kind of our initial diligence and desktop work. You know, one of the things that we're really looking for is land that's appropriately zoned for the types of buildings that we build. And this checked that box, generally speaking, and knowing from our meeting here last month that the township is going through adopting a potential or adopting a new zoning ordinance. This property actually remains relatively unaffected from a land use standpoint. So we've gone ahead and taken a look here. The proposed development here is for a building that is going to range somewhere from, call it 100,000 square feet. It could actually fit as many as kind of 400,000 square feet here. we really haven't decided whether it's one building, multiple buildings, or what the end development looks like. Because as we got into diligencing some of the challenges associated with the site, the sanitary sewer issue is one that came up. And while we think there may be an alternative to develop the site without it, our preference would be to have this be a public line. When we went ahead and learned that these discussions had already been started, that's what brought us all together here today to decide kind of which path we prefer to go down. So our plan at this point in time is relatively preliminary, but we saw this as a piece that we needed to understand a little bit better before we went ahead and advanced plans and came through kind of the normal development process here at Somerset, where we would go ahead and submit to Planning Commission and then submit a broader land development plan to be approved by the supervisors.
So the use, you're thinking 100,000 to 400,000 square feet, potentially, possibly multiple buildings. Warehousing, someone had mentioned data center, but again, that was just idle talk. Your thoughts are that it would be a transmodal or a warehousing facility as opposed to a data center?
That's right. So we've never developed a data center. Frankly, at this point in time, it's a real specialty. At some point, I'd like to think that we could grow it as an organization and maybe develop data centers. That is not our intended use here. And I think that as a group, Scott and I would tell you that we're a few years away from really understanding that business enough to build those buildings.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of demand for power, obviously. That's becoming a major driver for data centers. But there in this, as you point out, and the things we're working on zoning don't affect this area. The proposed zoning updates that have caused a lot of controversy are bringing commercial into the agriculture area, which is our major residential area. And we haven't been, we did this in the 07-08 timeframe. We zoned this for business and manufacturing. It makes sense because it's along the interstate highway, right at the exit. And so we established those corridors for development of commercial businesses. And so it's right in that area. And I believe that it's like a 75-acre parcel that fronts on Lively Road, just a few hundred feet off of 519.
Yeah, that's right. We've done a little bit of title work. There's a little bit of question as to exactly how large the parcel is. But yes, it is definitely 75 to 80 acres. We're working a couple of things out there. You know, once you get into the field surveying and some of those things, we'll land on it.
Right.
But that's correct. I think look, it's sort of on the edge of Somerset, but whether you know if you've seen it or not, you've definitely seen it if you've traveled, east on Interstate 70 from Washington. The site's very visible there, kind of above Kaplan Trucking and the tractor dealership. I'm sorry, that name's escaping me right now.
Right. Yeah, and it comes down to church. Emmanuel UP Church has a cemetery.
Yeah.
Which fronts on 519, and this property starts just maybe 200 or 300 feet up Lively Road off of 519, with maybe a few hundred feet of frontage on Lively, and then goes back quite a bit behind the other parcels that are fronted on Lively Road, facing I-70.
Yeah, that's right. And in typical Western Pennsylvania fashion, we've got a very odd-shaped piece of property. They all end up being relatively odd-shaped. Several of us are based here in Pittsburgh. Scott's actually in from North Carolina today. And when you go other places, you get nice square properties. We don't get that here, so it makes it more fun for Keith and Josh. But if you're familiar with where the cemetery is, the cemetery actually abuts the property on two sides of the cemetery. And in between the cemetery and the majority of the property will be developed, there's actually that pond. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Somerset Township old fire truck that's next to the pond that we noticed. It's been there for quite some time. And that area that's wet will provide some kind of buffer between where we're developing and the cemetery area. Because there's some stuff in there that you probably don't want to mess with
Right.
from a stream of wet standpoint. sent us back to you, basically. And basically what they had said was, yeah, we're open to it. We actually went ahead and did check with the joint authority who's treating to make sure that they actually had capacity to handle, and they do, and they were welcoming of it. Because if you read the municipalities that they are supposed to be serving, Somerset's actually not listed as one. So we wanted to make sure that they were comfortable with it. They were. So we've checked that box, which brought us back to giving you folks a call and see.
You know, one of the things I think we all have to look at is there a 537 update that's going to be needed for this whole, you know, for that area? Because I mean, it's just not like when you're going to extend. How many mile and a half, 2 miles?
It's probably closer to 2 miles from the south end of 84. So yes, I did speak with Diane of Rosewood Tower Consulting, who is CHJA's engineer.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, certainly it would require an Act 537 amendment.
Yeah, because I think the Act 537 that we currently operate on is the one that Washington County did like in 1972, when they did one for the whole county.
Yeah, actually CHJA has one as well. The Somerset Township would fall under Washington County, you're correct. I think the last time CHJA had an amendment was around 07, right, Josh? Something like that.
Would they amend it for this?
Yes, somebody would have to amend it, and it sounded like they were amenable to that.
To doing that?
Yes.
Because I think that's for everybody here, that's a big.
They just recently completed some upgrades to their treatment plant, which has taken their operating capacity up to 8.5 million gallons a day. Currently, they're operating at about 4.5. Also, in talking with Ann over at NSTMA and their engineer HRG, we are aware that once we enter the interceptor in 84, we have to go through probably 3 pumping stations before we get to the treatment plant. So, as part of this Act 537, also there's engineering and determining where there may be some capacity issues within those existing systems, but it sounds pretty positive that there is capacity within their existing system to accommodate the further development.
When we first talked to them back in January for that area that the township was at that time. I guess that, you know, another question that I think we all need to talk about, bring out on the table. We all know it ends on the other side of 136. You know. So I assume you're going to have a proposed route to bring it up to the site. I would think as it begins, that solution, for example, you're going to try to go right along the stream, I would think, to make it work. So you'll need township involvement for right away.
Correct. Yeah, quite honestly, Carl, we haven't looked at any type of a routing yet, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, exactly. But it's not out of the question that we will probably need some type of or a pumping station somewhere in this extension.
And Carl, you know, again, we wanted to have this meeting. There's a lot of things that need to be determined here, right? Even down to how big is this line actually going to be, right? You know, we have some real simple questions that we need to answer. But again, before we did that, we just wanted to get any feedback that we could from Somerset to tell us, yeah, we'll be supportive here, or no, you know, we're good. We don't, you know, you know, there's an awful lot of engineering that's going to need done here. That's going to take a lot of time, energy, and effort, and be at a fairly significant cost.
Yeah.
And before we went down that road, we wanted to make sure that the stakeholders here were unified in saying, yes, we want this. And if they're not, like I said, we'll have to see if we can figure something else out, or, you know, figure out a different alternative.
I can't speak for the supervisors, but I would think anytime you're going to get sewers, you can't develop without sanitary sewers.
and 84, that's north or south of 519, the tying point.
I think it's on the,
It's on
I think it's on the north.
Right on here,
I think it's on the north
By
side, but I
84
think
lumber, okay.
it's actually the west side, right?
West side, right, okay, so then, looking at potential routing, 519 is a couple miles from that point to where you would tie in a Lively Road possibly. Then the west side of 519 is the side that Little Chartiers Creek is on. Potentially that would be the side that you would parallel 519 from the center 84 lumber area to Lively Road on 519.
That's how the line works to the north of 136 along 519.
Okay.
That's how it works. Again, we didn't really have any routing discussions. But they had some extension discussions beyond where it is now, to maybe go, maybe a quarter mile from where it is now. So there has been some design done for the first little bit of it. We don't know if that design continues to be usable for us or not. So again, it's really right now, we're just trying to understand from Somerset, should we continue to pursue this?
That is Somerset. Little Chartiers Creek is the border between Somerset and Pennsylvania.
That's right.
As you go from 136 to Lively Road into I-70, and looking at the topography there, the west side, there's a fair amount of space between 519 and Little Chartiers Creek. The creek is windy, but there's a fair amount of space on the west side as opposed to the east side, which is primarily an embankment where the road has been cut down.
Right.
Okay, so that, again, just conceptually, then that could be the logical route.
That's right.
And that has been discussed. Prior to this, we have had discussions that the logical tie-in point for Somerset, which bringing sewers into Somerset, we have zoned for the major highways, 519, I-70, and 136 are zoned business and commercial for just this reason. And those are the discussions we've had, that our easiest tie-in looks like it's in 84, and that bringing the sewers down to the truck stop area, which is 519 and 70, or just maybe a quarter mile south of where Lively Road ties in, would be a logical tie-in for the sewers in Somerset Township. And that's, from a zoning and planning standpoint, that's been the foundation of our planning and zoning, is to develop. We have 7 miles of I-70 and 5 exits right through the middle of the township. And 15 years ago, we zoned that as business and commercial. So that conceptually, that goes right into the center of that plan.
Yeah, I got a question. Who's going to pay for the sewer line? This sounds like it's going to be about a $3 million project at least.
I think you're pretty good at math.
Oh, I do sewer line for a living.
Yeah, that's about what we were coming up with too.
Oh, yeah.
2.5 to 3.5 million, depending on lift stations and other things we may need in there. So, look, it's to be determined. I think that there are some. We've understood that there could potentially be some county funds available for infrastructure work that were part of the infrastructure bill that was passed a few years ago. What we'd really like to do is understand that the three parties are on board,
Mm-hmm.
and probably drive towards the execution of some memorandum of understanding and lay out the next steps as to what would need to happen in the way of amending the Act 537 plan and put us in a place where we felt that we could go ahead and advance design.
Okay.
But that's
Yeah, it's about what it is.
that's the
Pipe's
number
not
that-
cheap.
That's the number that Scott and I were coming up with.
For the county providing funding, which driving economic development obviously is one of their major objectives. So that would be obviously a big help to have as much grant funding, county funding, and looking at the capacity. From our standpoint, the next logical thing for Somerset is to go down the I-70 corridor, because that's an ideal place for us to promote dense commercial business development, and eventually denser housing that would come off of that, keeping the traffic out of the center of the township, which is our whole foundation of our planning element. So as you look at capacity, then it would make sense to consider the future legs of this as well, because this becomes a major feeder for a sewer system down the major road corridors of the township.
That should all be incorporated in that 537 plan extension. So certainly, this would need to be designed to accommodate that future growth.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, look, I see our project here as a potential catalyst for this extension. This extension, the warehouse buildings, the reality of it is, from an EDU standpoint, we don't make much sewage, right? You've got a relatively large building with, maybe 100 people working there. During the course of the day, nobody's taking showers, nobody's really cooking. From an EDU standpoint, we don't generate a ton of wastewater.
That was another question. Project EDUs.
I mean, something like that, we usually figure 300 or 3 gallons per day per person, so we're only talking 100 people, 300 gallons a day, which is basically 1 EDU.
So why don't you do one more?
On site, we may ultimately do on site, but because there is the potential here, and this plan had been discussed in the past, I thought we should at least run it down. And look, there may be other opportunities for us to develop along the way here if this infrastructure is in place. So we're pretty bullish on Washington County from a warehouse distribution and light manufacturing standpoint, because whenever our corporate clients run their workforce studies, your workforce shows really, really well. So I think that there's the potential for future development, and we didn't just want to gloss over this and say, yeah, we're going to do an on-site system and just kind of plow forward. So we thought it'd be prudent to open the conversation up.
This also touches, if you're on the west side of 519, it also touches the 1,200 acre CNX parcel. Zedekor Station is typically referred to. So that becomes attractive also. And that's what, as a township, we're looking for a balanced growth. We want, and this is a clean business, we want to create jobs and business, but we want to do it in areas that have impact on the residential areas of the township. And so that, plus, although the Zedekor Station property is in South Strabane, that I'm sure has some attractiveness from the county standpoint, because that's, I think, one of the largest undeveloped commercial sites in the state at about 1,200 acres. And it does actually touch 519 between 84 and the Lively Road area.
And by the way, I don't want to speak for the county. I think that they would be supportive of the project. We'd have to see from a funding standpoint if they are kind of willing, right? Again, we've got a lot to figure out between now and then. So.
What do you need from the township?
It's a great question, Carl. Again, coming in today is kind of a workshop. I think what I'm really looking for from the township is, yes, this works. Let's continue to advance the memorandum of understanding. Or, you know what, it doesn't. We're not really interested in it. Maybe pick a different path. I think that's really the decision that we're looking for. I don't know that we need final decision. We just really want to know if the township is supportive of the extension or not. That's all.
Yeah, another thing, I'm sorry.
I think what you need to do is submit something in writing to the planning commission. They can make a recommendation to the board of supervisors, and the board of supervisors consider it at a regular township meeting. They cannot make decisions here today at a workshop.
Yeah. No, and I knew we weren't going to get a vote today or anything like that. That was okay, but and we're happy to take that step.
I'm sorry, you get your name.
Jim Liker, L-I-E-K-A-R.
Yeah, another thing, I don't think you'd be able to break ground or anything until the main sewer line's in. Is that right? I don't know.
Probably not.
You'd have to do the main sewer line first, and then you could break ground. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know if those things could happen in parallel or not.
I mean, why would you build a building and then the sewer line, something happens with that?
Well, Dan, if you're only doing 100,000, they likely would do it in stages. So
Right.
if they did 100,000, then the sewage requirements for that could be compatible with on lot, and then bring it on later.
Right.
To develop the full potential of the property. So that might be a potential for a warehousing facility where you don't have a lot of 100,000, you wouldn't have the full 100 people and
Right.
even the 300 gallons per day.
Or potentially use holding tanks in the interim, like the.
Until the main line's in, yeah,
That's it.
and tie in.
Or you could, you could build them similar time. But look, I'm a little ways away from construction staging yet. We'll get there. We'll get there over the next several months, I think. I'm a little far away from that yet.
There was mention that, the sewer line could go down on the west side of Chartiers Creek, which is South Strabane. Would it take cooperation for South Strabane then with this project also?
Oh, actually, that's Somerset. Because 519, the border between South Strabane and Somerset is Chartiers Creek.
That's what I'm saying.
But there's quite a bit of space between 519. The west side of 519 and Chartiers Creek, so
I agree.
it would actually run through Somerset.
If it is located on the other side of Chartiers Creek, then it would take South Strabane to cooperate also.
Yeah, I think you're right. South Strabane is already part of CHJ's area, correct? Oh no, I'm sorry, they go to Washington. I'm sorry, they go to Washington. We haven't engaged in any conversation with those folks yet. I think that they could potentially benefit from the line.
But I think as part of that Act 537, we would certainly identify that and need to incorporate them into this agreement plan. Yeah, it needs to be considered for sure.
Yeah, but we haven't approached them yet. We haven't had any discussions with them yet. I appreciate you bringing it up.
It is, that corridor is fairly wide between 519 and Little Chartiers Creek. And the 1,200 acre CNX property is in South Strabane. The majority of it, there may be an acre or two that's in Somerset where it touches 519 just outside of south of 84.
But when we talk about this 537 plan, the intent is to determine the parts of Washington County that could potentially have public sewage from this line extension. So if we need to show that sewer shed further west to capture that area, that's the purpose of planning for it. So we know, like you said, about extending it along the 70 corridor, extending it, how far west can we go, how far east can we go? We're trying to ultimately determine how much sewer can be captured within this area and still go to that treatment plant. So we're sort of trying to look at the big picture and benefit Washington County the best that we can.
Yeah, you guys are the first step, the first piece. I'll tell you what, we'll take a stab at drafting that letter, that request. Can we send it to you as a draft and a few other things that
We
we
need
need?
a copy to the township.
Okay.
Township review it and refer it to the planning commission for their review. But yeah, it's
Okay. Please, let's just make sure we get your contact information before we leave. I think we understand the next step. Does anybody have any other questions? We can blab all day about it.
So what's this, what's your anticipated time for the review?
We said the other day, it's probably a 1.5-year process to get everybody to come to, first of all, the MOU, an intermunicipal agreement, and then the Act 537 plan, do enough design, that we can get the permitting process started, DEP's review, but it's probably a 1.5-year process.
Do you think DEP, how long do you think they're gonna take?
I think we're thinking it's 6 to 8 months within that period.
We could take Somerset Township and we can move it into the Northwest District of the DP.
Well, that's probably what get reviewed anyway. I just think that that's all. Sometimes you look
Yeah, we understand it's not a fast process.
Yeah, and we've asked Keith and Josh to look at what an on-site system looks like. We're looking at that as well.
I mean, the whole benefit of the town, would be.
This is a better way to do development than to just look at the property, do something self-contained, just kind of blow and go. This is a better way to do it, we think.
I think long, I'm with these guys for long, that's a good.
I think the Kaplan facility and the tractor place are both on holding tanks, not correct?
That's correct. There's nothing there. And that's, for this type of business, that's what everyone along the corridor has done a low impact business that could be done on a holding tank. And so that's a good starter plan, but that doesn't allow you to have the full development potential of that property. And with the highway access, I-70 and the access roads, it's an ideal location to drive commercial and business development.
We agree.
I got one more, just a quick question.
Sure.
Okay, whenever you're done building and everything, are you guys gonna put like a nice natural buffer around it, like pine trees and stuff, so it's not quite such a nice eyesore or something like that?
Honestly, we haven't gotten into the drafted any kind of development plans
Oh, okay.
yet.
That's further down the road.
Yeah, in addition to.
I mean, what do you normally do? Is that what you normally do? Put pine trees around them?
Normally those things are addressed in the zoning ordinance as to what requirements are,
Right.
and we'll meet the ordinance.
I can tell you one of the last projects we did, we put in 1,000 trees in that, if you recall, so. I'm not saying we're doing that here, but yeah, depending on the size of the site,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it'd be nice.
I'm sure that there will be a landscape plan, associated with the, development plan package that gets submitted to the township.
Fair enough.
Any other questions? No. Have anything else? We appreciate everybody's time today. Thank you.
Thank you.